Get ready to get in the game. Stretch, strengthen, live, and thrive. You can be a winning athlete in the game of life. It's the Peel Appeal with author and corrective exercise specialist Matt Peel.
Hey, this is Matt Peel with the Peel Appeal podcast. How are you? What's happening today out there in your big, awesome world? I hope it's having an amazing, fantastic day, and I'm going to help you make it even better. Why? Because I'm going to give you some very amazing tips and hints on how to help with something that affects everybody, especially in today's world, and that's about your posture. Yes, that's right. Stand up straighter. Why are you hunched all over? Posture's terrible. Remember those things that your mother used to tell you? Right? Stand up straighter. Why, you look like an old man or an old woman. I know my mom used to say, stand up straighter. Why all hunched over? Especially if you're a teenager, right? You kind of have that teenage slouch about you. Well, she was kind of right? Moms are usually right about those things like that. But what exactly is posture? And who cares, right? Who cares about your posture? Or maybe you do care. It's actually pretty important. And your mom's words, like I said, still ring true today. But what factors affect your posture? And are there things that you actually have control over? Or is it hereditary and you're just going to be sentenced to being all stooped over, as my grandfather used to say, for the rest of your life? So today, I'm going to talk about 5 factors that influence your posture, what they are, and what you can do about them. So it's not just me speaking out my ass, out the top of my head. I'm going to give you a lot of information today from the National Academy of Sports Medicine Corrective Exercise Specialist certification, which I received back in 2020, and give you information from that text because it's important for you to know what the science is, what are the facts behind things, not just what's conjecture or what you see on social media, but what you should do, what you should not do. But really, what is it about? So, let's figure out, first of all, what's called static posture. And static just means fixed, as opposed to dynamic or in motion, right? So, this is exactly from actually chapter 8 of the Corrective Exercise Specialist certification, so that you know that I'm reading it and giving you the facts. So, static posture represents how an individual physically presents themselves without movement and as a reference for the alignment of the body. An individual's static posture provides the first clues toward a comprehensive understanding of their overall mobility and neuromuscular control capabilities. And then talks a little about doing postural assessments, static postural assessments. But now that you know what I'm talking about when I say posture, it's how you're presented when you're standing still, not when you're moving. That's a wholly different situation. But what you're doing when you're just standing still. So the first factor is called chronic suboptimal postures. So what does that mean in basic language? Well, how are you sitting at your desk? Right, so I'm sitting at my desk right now as I'm recording this. But on a daily basis, how are you sitting at your desk? Are you kind of slumped over? Are you leaning and shifting to one side? Is your head forward? Where is your screen in relation to your eyes? And how are you sitting and for how long in that position? So chronic means over time. Acute is just one time or just a couple times. So what is chronically over time, days, weeks, months, years? How are you sitting? Which relates to how are you standing? So that's the first factor when we talk about your distortions and then how you present or how you are when you're still, because you're in that position for hours and hours a day. Even if you exercise and stretch, once a day, it still doesn't counteract the fact of where you're sitting and how you're sitting for 8 to 10 hours or longer per day. So that's the first factor into your posture is chronic suboptimal postures over the long term. Second factor is something called habitual repetitive movements, which is also related to optimal postures chronically, right? Believe it or not, a repetitive movement is also sitting and being in that same position, leaning into your screen. That's a repetitive movement because you're constantly going back into that every day, all day long for long periods of time. But it's also about incorrect lifting form and maybe awkward positions that you're sitting in. And repetitive movement, I'll give an example of this. I have a client, or had a client, he's a good friend now, named Neil Hightower. And when he would stand at his desk, he would put his left foot up kind of like a block, on a block, underneath his desk. And that became comfortable for him. Well, that created chronic suboptimal posture and also was a habitual repetitive movement pattern, because now he was in that with his left leg open and off to the side. And even as he just stood there and I would watch him, his left leg was open, and it created some imbalances in how he was able to use his muscles because he was in that repetitive movement, that movement pattern. Another example is if you're picking up incorrect lifting form every day, right? Maybe you're bending over instead of bending at the knees. And so you're habitually using this incorrect movement pattern, or picking up your briefcase. That's when we have things such as tendonitis in your elbows or your knees or your shoulders from a repetitive movement that just creates inflammation. That also affects your posture. So what is your repetitive movement patterns? Take a look at that. Kind of think about it. What am I doing on a daily basis that is affecting that? Maybe, again, incorrect lifting form, or just the way you're shifting your body. The third factor, so those are chronic, right? Those are long-term issues happening with you. Repetitive, habitual, chronic, right? Now we're going to shift into a couple things that are what's called acute, or something short-term, but then can have a long-term effect on you as a result. A big factor that I see in everyone, and I'm just as guilty, or have been, is from acute injuries. So if you have an injury, you hurt your knee, you hurt your shoulder, you hurt your hip, you hurt some joint in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't have to be a big injury. Maybe it's just an ankle sprain, twist your ankle. But that acute injury, and because of your ankle pain, and then you want to not put weight onto it, so that results in imbalances that go all the way up your body, say from your ankle, up to your knee. Maybe you start to have knee pain. Maybe you actually start to have pain on the opposite side of your body because of the way you compensate for that pain in your gait. Even though it's an acute injury, it just happened once, but it was bad enough to cause you to shift how you walk, or shift how you sit, or shift how you're lifting something, that over time goes back to that repetitive movement in an incorrect manner, which then affects your posture and how you present yourself in that seated or that static, non-moving way. Right? You wouldn't think it, but they're all related. That's why the body is called, there's regional interdependence, where everything is related to itself. And again, just from something simple as a twisted or sprained ankle can cause compensations that last literally a lifetime. It just doesn't heal right. And that's kind of where number 4, the same thing too. Not letting factors from recovering from a surgery. Right? Again, similar to acute injuries, you're using different muscles to compensate and in positions to avoid that pain and lack of full function in that area, like in that ankle. Maybe you had surgery on that ankle. And then, again, the same thing. It's just kind of like a broken record. And I get it, but they're all various factors that you think, oh man, there's no way that my twisted ankle 3 years ago affects me today. Yes, it does. That's the difference, though, is that it can affect you today back from 3 years ago. Because that fifth factor is also something called incomplete rehab of past injuries or from past surgeries. So you didn't go through your PT fully, or maybe your insurance ran out. So you're not didn't get the full range of motion back, the full flexibility, the full strength in that ankle, because we continue to use that for example. Now, again, that cumulative injury cycle starts. You have postural distortions, which then leads to muscle imbalances, which then leads to another injury. So if you're sitting there going, oh, man, you just nailed it for me. I had no idea that my twist ankle that I hurt playing tennis, or actually stepped in a hole cut in the grass 3 years ago, could be hurting my hip on the opposite side. Yes, it can. And that's how we have all these distortions and then muscle imbalances. So it's important to address that small problem today so it doesn't add up to larger pains later on down the road. Yes, literally a pain in your ass or a pain in your neck that didn't even start in your ass or in your neck, right? But it just over time got to there. So address the issues today. Work to improve your posture now. If you are recovering from a surgery currently, or if you just had an injury, make sure you rehab it properly and fully. Take a look at how you're sitting. Take a look at what are some repetitive movements that you're doing. How can you change that to now remodel your body back into good posture by stretching that overly tight muscle and then strengthening that opposite side of the joint, overly lengthened, weakened muscle, right? It takes time. You didn't get into this chronic pain position and have this posture just overnight. Again, weeks, months, years of these repetitive movements of compensating for injuries in past surgeries. That's how you are today. So the good news, you can get it all back. Invest the time. Stretch that muscle, tight muscle multiple times a day. Adjust your seating. Get a different seat. Get a standing desk, whatever it may be. Go back to PT. Work with a professional. Make sure your joints are functioning optimally, which helps with your posture, which reduces your chronic pain. Feel taller. You have more self-confidence because you can stand up taller, and you can function a whole lot better. If you still need some help from that, awesome. I am here for you. How's that? How about my book, The Athlete in the Game of Life? It's all about what I just talked about. Go to Amazon today and purchase it on paperback, on Kindle, or an audiobook, and listen to me narrate my own story for you. Great book. Go to my website too, and it'll link you to Amazon. While you're on mattpeel.com, how about you scroll down just a little bit and click on where it says, I'm tired of being in pain. That's right. In 10 minutes or less per day with my program Stretching at Your Desk or Strengthening at Your Desk, I will improve your posture to help you feel better, look better, be in less pain, have more confidence, and now you can go out and do all the things you like to do just even better and have more enjoyment, right? Just under $100. I guarantee you're going to feel better. You're going to get rid of the pain. You're going to be functioning the way you want to do so, or your money back. Awesome. I love it. I love helping you, and I'm glad you're listening today. Thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe to the Peel Appeal podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And until next time, I will talk to you later.
Are you ready to get in the game? Get personal help, sign up for our newsletter, and pick up your copy of Athlete in the Game of Life, the book, all at mattpeel.com. Thanks for listening.